without having talked about negation, because it is something that is very basic to human languages, and in fact it is the only known, one of the few universal features that we can say. We know with a great amount of certainty that all languages have it. So what I thought I would do, I'll talk about like negation and try to convince you why it's interesting and worth the while. And then I will show what I consider to be focal points and focal areas of expressions of negation in the languages of the world. So, as I said, this is something we know exists. All languages have a way to turn a positive sentence into a negative one. And this is what we've been taught in school grammars, that you add something to a positive sentence, so it is called in here, it's not called in here. There is an element that you stick in and you get the opposite sense. I hope to show that negation is not always symmetric with affirmation, in fact it rarely is, but this is how philosophers and logicians have been looking at it in much of Western humanitarian science. And this is another very general feature of negation, that it's the study of oppositions, and it has been tackled from very many different points of view in philosophy, logic, grammars, and linguistics. So there is a discrepancy between what logicians see as negation, and they get very disappointed, in fact baffled, when they're confronted with natural language material. Why? Well, negation is an operator in formal semantics and formal logic, so you get a truth table, which is usually expressed if you have a statement P that can be true or false, and the negative operator not P. So if P is true, not P will be false, and the opposite, if P is false, not P will be true. Such statements in logic classes or formal semantics classes will involve a unicorn. So if a unicorn is gray, then not P, and that is our statement, then not P will mean that the unicorn is not gray. And yeah, if it is false, that the unicorn is gray, not P will mean that the unicorn is actually gray. So logicians are happy, and double negation, so not P, it is not the case that the unicorn is gray, gives you the true value of P that is in logic. So in logic, negation is symmetric, and negation is a fairly simple operation that you apply on positive sentences or statements, and you get the opposite. This is what you also do in mathematics, right? Well, this is not what you get in natural languages. Okay? And negation in the languages that humans speak is not symmetric, it is not logical. Here I quote the secretary in Michigan when she was really angry because she was making a phone call and the phone was not working, and she's like, the phone is doing nothing. So in English, this is not a sentence you will write, but it is definitely a sentence you will hear. And it does not have to, it doesn't mean that the phone is actually working. The phone is definitely not working. So, negation is a marked speech act in what sense? Well, it does require more linguistic material. You need something. It is always the case that you get a heavily more loaded sentence. You have more phonology, more morphemes. Harry speaks Turkish. Harry doesn't speak Turkish, right? There is If you count the morphemes or the words in the two sentences, it's easy to see that the negated one has more of those. When you use negation, you presuppose more knowledge on the side of your speaker, of your interlocutor. So if I start like a dialogue with something like I went skiing yesterday or last winter, oh, was it nice, was enough snow, did you have fun? But it is a fully legitimate way to open a conversation, right? If I start the conversation by a negative, like I didn't go skiing, and oh, we were supposed to go skiing. I mean, it's all like it's a very confused start of a conversation, and you don't do it. And you don't do it for a reason, because you can't, whoever is like listening to you or whoever you're talking to, they may not even know that you're a skier, right? So, then you get, studies have shown that in a negative structure requires more processing time than an affirmative one. So, say something. You say an affirmative sentence like "to err is common," you understand the time to process that is much shorter than something as convoluted as "to err is not uncommon," which basically like means the same thing, but it is extremely complicated to even understand. And in academic papers, I don't know why, I have been in this same track myself. And you think you're more scientific if you go and write something like this, and then people stare, and your advisor is really angry at you, and they're like, no, if something is common, you say that is common. Do not go in this roundabout way, because it's really evasive. You know, I mean, you're saying to something to err is not uncommon, or is a certain phenomenon is, you're not sure how common or uncommon it is, and this is a very frequent way to express like that. But just think about it, that your reader will have a really hard time understanding what is it that you want to say. Negation has been what typologists call a low-hanging fruit, because any grammar you open will have something on negation, which is why we are convinced that it is a universal. So far, we know of 3 such universal features. I believe I've mentioned them. All languages have a way to form questions. All languages from affirmative sentences. All languages have a way to form a negative. Whether it is from the affirmative or they just form a negative, that's a different question, but there is a way to say no, there is a way to say my eyes are not brown, and to lie. I mean, this is what negation very much enables you to do. The third universal that we know is that all languages have a way of distinguishing things that are permanent entities. They don't change very much within time, and things that change through time. In some languages, these things will be coded as nouns and verbs. So nouns will code permanent things, and verbs will code transient things. It is very naive to assume that all languages have noun and verbs, but it is a common distinction. Back to negation, so we know that it's easy to find, so we study it a lot. But it's studied very sporadically. I'll show this in a minute. Things that have been worried, people in linguistics and in grammar have been worried about are negation of main lexical verbs in simple declarative sentences. This is known as standard negation. And negation in other kinds of structures. If you use a negator, how long does it stretch within a specific phrase or a sentence? And where do negators, the markers of negation, come from? In when I speak today in this lecture, I decided that I will just stick to what people study in typology. They do study these things too, but I will stick to identifying markers of negation in main declarative sentences and negation in structures that are less than sentences, and in negation in different kinds of sentences. So, in this, on sentence level, we know about standard or verbal negation, and typical examples are Mary does not sing or smoke or run, and what is important to note. The standard negator is identified in a language when it is used in a simple declarative sentence. And that sentence has a lexical verb. So, if you have the special negators for auxiliary verbs don't count. What would be the standard negator in Turkish?
Söylemiyor.
Değil.
Mi. Me.
Me. Right? Okay. Me. So this is essentially the negator for lexical verbs in simple sentences. And I also call it the verbal negator. This is what it does. Well, there are other kinds of sentences. There are existential sentences. There are no ghosts here or anywhere. They may have a special negator. Like Turkish is a very, very good here. Yok, right? And then negators in attributive predications with the predications that where the subject is identified as not being identical as a nominal predicate or a stative predicate. They may have their own strategy. And these things, negators here, they may be expressed by the standard negator, but they're usually, when people study standard negation, they don't look at these structures. They only look at sentences that have a express, clear lexical verb. These may be different, hence they are excluded from standard negation. Okay. So in Turkish, what would be the attributive negator? Right.